So, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, students, faculty, staff, friends, everyone. Just welcome. Thank you guys for being here. I think special good afternoon to our guest, Miss Sheri Collins, who you heard Miss Espinor. She talked about her excitement. That excitement is shared with
It works now.
us on this campus. Many of us on this call, we're excited, Sheri, to have you with us today. On behalf of our president, Dr. Burnett, we want to welcome you to our campus, welcome you virtually to our campus, welcome you to the family. We are excited to have you here, and I'm not going to take up any more of your time. I'm going to pass it on to Dr. McFarland to do an introduction of our guests, and then we will jump right into it. Go ahead, Dr. McFarland.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. I guess it's Megan who's going to start with the introduction. Megan, go first, and then I can start the conversation with Sheri.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. McFarland and Dr. Thompson. So really quickly, before we get started, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We will go ahead and address them toward the end of the event. So whatever you think of, go ahead and stick it in there, and we'll make sure that your questions get answered. So without further ado, we are welcoming Miss Sheri Collins, excuse me. She is the curvy stylist. She has built a career for more than 20 years in marketing communications and sales, and she is armed with a strong entrepreneurial spirit and strategic vision. She combines her expertise in marketing with a passion for personal style to inspire others to go confidently into the direction of their dreams. Sheri's branding philosophy is grounded in her belief in Psalm 139:14. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and that my soul knows very well. She delivered her first TEDx talk virtually during the pandemic at TEDx Virgin County Academies. In addition, she's been a featured speaker at colleges and professional organizations, including National Association of Administrative Professionals, New York Women's Chamber of Commerce, Hampton University, Rutgers Business School, University of Texas in Austin, and University of Delaware Diamond Business Challenge. So I will go ahead and turn the mic over to Dr. McFarland, and thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you. Well, I have to say that she's the marketing and sales director for the Shark Group in the speaking division. Shark Group, whose CEO is Daymond John. And that's how I met Sheri year and a half ago, more or less. I tried to invite Daymond John for this marketing series, and I sent like 7, 8 emails trying to reach Daymond, and then Sheri answered one of these emails because she works with him. And at the end, we couldn't get Daymond, but I discovered that Sheri, I didn't know Sheri before. She has, besides being a great human being, from my point of view, I think, Sheri, you are a great human being, a great woman, and she's a great professional in the marketing field. She has a lot of experience. So where are you from, Sheri? I just want to give the audience a little bit of your background. I know that you're from Detroit, is that correct?
Yes, I am. I am imported from Detroit. I have lived, can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay, yes, I'm imported from Detroit. And I've been in New York almost 11 years now. And people say, you're a New Yorker, aren't you? I'm like, no, I'm imported to New York from Detroit, and I will always be a Detroiter. So
why did you go to New York? Why to go to New York? Why didn't you stay in Detroit?
You know, it's so funny. I was really trying to do something different in my career. right? So there was a reorganization going on at my company. I worked for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. I was director of marketing and sales training there. I'd been there for 15 years. And I really wanted to step out and do something that would give me a rewarding, more creative life. I felt like I've done some of everything, but I thought that I had reached the pinnacle of my career there and I really wanted to do something different. Well, at my going away party, they were hiring me back to be a consultant, right? So I thought I had it made. I had, $40,000 worth of business on the books. Everything is going to be great. I'm working with the CEO of the dental program. I'm working with, other account managers and doing strategic marketing workshops. And then 2008 happened, the Great Recession. And they got rid of all of the consultants. I lost my house and lost everything. But I had been had relaunched myself as the curvy stylist. I had a blog and I was talking about plus size fashion. So I was going back and forth to New York until one day I decided, or I felt very led to ask everybody that I met in New York that, I'm looking for some place to live. And I wrote about it in my blog, and I'm not going to bore you with the whole story, but a week later, I found myself in New York City in an apartment where I rented a room, and it was actually the living room in this apartment, not knowing what I was going to do, but I had friends here, and I temped, and I ended up renting a room from a woman who was the consultant for the MBA conference, the National Black MBA conference. I don't know why I was stumbling over that because I'm a part of the organization, but the National Black MBA conference in that year, it was 2010, 2011, it was going to be in Atlanta. So this is a huge conference with a huge career fair. So as you guys work on your MBA, or your business degrees, you really want to look into it because it has the biggest career fair in the world. So the woman I was working with thought that I would go there, make connections, find a job. Well, I was the VIP speaker, concierge. So that meant that I had to be ready for the big time speakers to come into town, answer any questions they had, and so forth and on. And Daymond was one of those speakers. He wasn't even a keynote speaker. He was handling another session, and it was talking about how to create the perfect pitch and things like that. They invited me to stay in the session, and I was so impressed by what he had to say, and the way he just managed the room and the information he shared with people, that when he was doing press and everything, I had an opportunity to ask him a question. I was walking him out the door. And this is why I say it's so important to be, have an idea of what's the strategic vision that you have for your life, what's your personal brand, what you're trying to accomplish. Because what ended up happening is, I just want to ask you a question. I know everybody else is. Do you mind as we walk, as I walk you to the door? He said, no, not at all. And I told him I was a stylist with an MBA. I have applied to Vogue and Elle and even Oprah Winfrey's fashion magazine. And nobody seems to get me. They just want someone that went to FIT. And I'm like, isn't it all about branding anyway? Isn't it just, I know I'm not a designer, I said, but isn't it about, branding and exposure for the advertisers of the magazine? He said, sure it is. But he also said, looked me straight in the eye and said, anybody can call themselves a stylist. You're not a stylist, you're a brand architect. And for the first time, I realized I didn't have to leave my business acumen, my love of marketing behind. I could marry the two in a really powerful way, in a different way than I'd expected. And 10 years later, I'm a brand stylist. But what happened after that was that I started stalking him on social media. And there was an article, there was something he posted saying he was looking for interns in his New York office. And then there was an article after that from Black Enterprise that said that internships are not for college students anymore, are not just for college students anymore. They're for seasoned professionals looking to make a career change. So I decided to apply. And they were like, really? You want to work here? And I was like, yes. And I went into the Empire State Building. Lil Wayne was playing on the radio. Okay, I'm in suited up and everything. I had to loosen up, look so I could fit in a little bit better. And they really were starting the speaking division, and they thought that I could help them do it. And Champ Nichols hired me. He was starting the speaking division. I've been with them ever since. And that was November 2011. At the age of 46, I was an intern, not getting paid, working at Lane Bryant for $8 an hour, temping, still had one client that I brought with me from Detroit. And that's the history.
Wow. And that's how I met Sheri. And that's when I heard that story, I knew this story a little bit. I discovered that she is a great consultant. Oh, I'm sorry. That she is a great consultant, and she has a lot of experience in personal branding. And that's why I invited her, because the topic for today that I want to discuss with Sheri and all of you people connected in this event, I want to talk about personal branding. That's why I invited Sheri. So Sheri, I want to start by asking you, how do you make a great first impression today? You were talking about that you met Daymond and that you started talking to him, and how do you make the first impression?
I love that question, and thank you for asking that one first, because anytime I talk to an audience, whether it is an audience of high school students, college students, or seasoned professional folks in their 50s, when I ask, how do you make a great first impression today? Everybody says what you would do physically. A good handshake, great eye contact, really a personable, professional appearance, and those kinds of things. And then the next question I ask, well, how do you feel when you are about to meet with a company or a person? Like Dr. Thompson said, I checked you out. He went on the social media, probably Googled me, was able to find out who I was. And so I ask, how do you feel when you can't find anybody and you can't find the person or the organization so you can get some information? And they said, I'm frustrated. I feel like they have something to hide, or I feel like they're behind the times, things like that. And the whole point is that we're in an information society. We live life through this thing, right? So if you do not have a personal brand out there or any information that allows people to understand who you are, whether it's a LinkedIn, your Instagram, or Twitter, or whatever it may be, a website, about.me, whatever it is, then you're not giving a person an opportunity to do their homework, not giving them an opportunity to satisfy that need to have that information about you so that they can govern themselves accordingly. And as the definition of a brand means, it's what can we expect when we get you?
Interesting. So what will be, excuse me?
Estás escuchando a mi mejor amigo.
Excuse, hello? Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Please put on mute your microphone, and if you have a question, let us know through the chat room, and we'll read the question and we share the answer with you guys. But so I was reading this book called Be Your Own Brand. It was published in 1999 by McNally and Carl Spick. And they said that your brand is a perception or emotion maintained by somebody other than you that describes the total experience of having a relationship with you. So do you agree with this? What is your definition of personal branding? Do you agree with this definition? What is your, because I read also that you help people with their personal branding with style. What do you mean?
Thank you. I'm in New York, so excuse me, and I have the window open because I don't want to be hot. So I had to turn it off until the ambulance went by. Okay, so I talk about personal branding because it's about having a more personal brand, whether it's a business or a person, because that should influence your business, your product, your service, or what you're going to deliver in the workplace. So why I said Megan was so nice to read my scripture that I'm inspired by, because Fearfully and Wonderfully Made really started to speak to me about the personal style of people. When you look up the definition of style and you look at it, you assume it's about having this awesome jacket on and a whole outfit, but really fashion doesn't come into the definition until like the third or the fourth entry. Before that, it starts talking about how things are done, how something is made, a distinct identity for something, right? And so when I started unpacking, and this is where the inspiration from Daymond came, but it didn't really come in like this until years later, that when I'm talking about personal branding with style, I'm saying, what are the gifts, talents, and abilities, the unique things that you have that shape who you are, shape how you approach a job, that shape how your product is developed, shape how you are going to attack an opportunity. So, and then I really started thinking, when I started thinking about young people or people that are looking for jobs, professionally, you have a personal brand. You need to be able to have your reputation, right, precede you, right?
Is the same, a personal brand is the same as reputation? Is there any difference?
I don't think there is. I think because of the advent of social media and the way we digest information today or consume information today, that the idea of what's reputation and what is brand is now just melded together. I also look at it's just the different of the lexicon of the day, right? We don't say reputation, but we really say the brand. But when you're talking about a company, sometimes I think you and I had started speaking, that's part of the impetus for this meeting today, is how does that reputation of the person or the reputation of the company affected by the personal brand of the people? Yeah. So we can talk about that a little bit later. But when I'm talking about personal branding with style, it's you have a job description. You're going to send you a job description for the internship program. However, you're going to be selected based on how you are going to do the job. And if you have no idea of what your gifts, talents, and abilities, those skills that make you unique, then you are going to have an issue because you're just going to be generic. And I love to use this simple example of how style distinguishes a brand. It's talking about something as ubiquitous as the burger. Everybody has one. Every company, every deli, every big brand, fast food company, they all have a burger, right? But I can show you, when I do my sessions, I talk about how style is a particular way something is made or delivered to the consumer, right? So I can show you a picture of a Big Mac. I can show you a picture of a Whopper. I can show you a picture of a Wendy's burger and White Castle. And just by looking at how that burger is styled, also known as made, you can tell me what that brand is. Easy, right? McDonald's, 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, right? And then you've got Wendy's when they have a round bun, but the meat is square and stick it out. Why? Because the way they make their meat, their burger, their brand is that it's always fresh and never frozen. And then that also has been interpreted in a company core value, because what they say is Wendy's never cuts corners. So you see how the power of that personal brand, you know, that branding idea, the style of that branding idea can really distinguish you in the marketplace. I was known I always say when I'm talking to groups that at Blue Cross Blue Shield, I was the millennial of the day. I was kicking ass, taking names, doing new stuff. People, you know, the internet didn't even exist. We had to decide whether we were going to let companies email us. That's where I was, right? So when it came down to becoming the new marketing director of communications, I had to help define them and transition them from dumping so much information out there, because that's not how we digest it anymore. It needs to be brief, to the point, with a message that resonates with people in a different way. So I said a whole lot, but I hope that was very helpful.
Yes, it was.
Uh-huh.
Yes. And so you were talking about, the brand of different companies. You put the example of McDonald's and Wendy's. So how important is personal branding to position a business brand? So is there any correlation, or they're just separate? What is the correlation between personal branding and a business brand or product brand?
There's a few. I always like to use the example of Apple and Mac. Because Steve Jobs has a quote, and it said something about, you don't, I really have it, so I don't have to joke about it. It's how do you, instead, when you have competition, you can't look at the competition and say you're going to do it better. That's what most people say. You have to look at the competition and say you're going to do it differently. And you really see that when you see the advertising and the cult of personality that was created by Mac and iPhone. You really don't see them on the TV or commercials telling you it does this, it does that, it has this pixel on the camera, it does this and that. All the other carriers, all the other companies do stuff like that. But Apple's going to make it how it, the new phone, it was like, people were having these explosive experience. It's going to blow your mind. You get to pick the color that you want. It's a style. It's a different kind of thing. And you can only do it with Apple, right? So I say that, and that's because I'm a little angry, because I am not an Apple person and I get Apple shamed all the time. But that is just a really great example of the difference. Adele's going to tell you all the specs and the ideas and this and that and the other for the thing. But the Mac is going to say, is this color look as cute? And it's going to change your personality. And you're going to be one of us. Yes? All right, so that's really important. That's a big company example. Sometimes when people are small, they're small businesses and they're starting out and they're trying to figure out their business plan, and they've got to do that section called marketing. And I say, it is what those things that are unique about you, your unique perspectives on things, that will actually differentiate yourself in the marketplace, very much like the burger does, right? The styling of the burger does. And let me give you an example. I was teaching one of the training programs at Daymond's workshop, where everybody would come to New York and they would spend 3 days, and he would have his business experts. I was a personal branding expert, and others would talk about other things. But I had this family business, this father and daughter that made cheesecakes. And I had her up on stage, and we were going through the questions that I do to help people understand their personal brand. And generally, I can say, when you're about done and you think it's all done, people always say, what I really want to do is, all right. And so she said they made cheesecakes. But when she was getting ready to go off the stage, she said, what I really want to do is make a wedding cake out of cheesecake. See, even you, right? And I said, excuse me, you can get down off my stage right now, because you should have started with that. So, I'm a little sassy, excuse me. But I asked the audience, I polled the audience. I said, how many of you have seen a cheesecake that is a wedding cake? Nobody had. That is the thing that would differentiate herself in the marketplace, at least get people in the door. Right. And you just don't think about those things. You feel like you have to do it like everybody else, but no, you do it like Steve Jobs said, do it differently. Uber's a good example. Uber's like, we're not taxis. We're going to be a rideshare service. We're going to get regular people, So think about how they disrupted the marketplace. Those are the things that personal brand, that personal perspective that makes you unique can make your burger different than anybody else's.
So do you think that everybody should have a personal brand? or it's just for professionals in whatever field? Everybody should have a personal brand. What is the best way to start building your own brand? So for our students, when they graduate, what would be your recommendation to start building your personal brand?
Well, because I just did the intern talk this week, and this is one thing I do. Everybody else does an intern talk, and it's about their life and things like that at the Shark Group and stuff. Mine is a workshop on personal branding with style. And I call it personal branding for the grownish, because you guys are in a wonderful position where now you get to transition yourself in a way that represents who you are and sells who you are before you even get in the interview. Okay, so yes, I think everyone should have a personal brand, really specifically because we consume so much information. If you do not have it, then you're missing an opportunity to market yourself free. It's not anything that's going to cost you anything, but you get to control the narrative about who you are. And so one of the ways that I feel, because we do, what you'll find, I feel like for this group, the most important piece is social media, because many of you have social media, Twitter accounts, Instagram accounts, maybe you have LinkedIn, maybe you don't, but whatever's going to happen, typically in any job application or interview, they're going to ask to see your social media. Okay. And so it's important for you to be able to transition that, build that, diversify your page so that it begins to talk about the things that you're interested in, not just partying, not just hanging out with my friends or family. No, literally begin to start sharing the things that you're interested in. And I know he's on here, so I'm going to talk about Pato, because it's not a traditional, he's not a traditional candidate. He's not looking for a job at a company. He's looking to build his brand as an artist. Yes. And that's different, right? So if you have something that makes you, that's different, it would behoove him to be able to put out his content that reflects that artistic and creative eye. Also, if you are looking for a job, as he did with us, he made content for Daymond John. So that also shows how that skill can be applied professionally as well. Now, how do you come up with those things? Because you might say, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I have 7 questions to help you uncover your personal brand. But I talk about, I use the show Grownish. I don't know if any of you have seen the show, but there was an episode in 2019. Thank you, Daniela. The show in 2019, I think, that was called Erase Your Social Media. And it was really great because they were just sitting around and they were talking about, the one kid that was more of an activist, I really only share content that is in keeping with my progressive political values. Then there was the twins, and they were athletes, and they had their eyes set on going to the Olympics. So they said they only shared content that let their potential sponsors, their future sponsors, see that they're thriving and a good bet, right? Then you have these Yara, who's the star of the show. She is a fashionista, and she says, yes, I talk about fashion all the time, those kind of things. And that was great. But the other half of that conversation was each one of them made mistakes that were against their personal brand because they were not particular or specific about what they shared, what they looked at, right? And I'll give you 2 examples. The young man who was an activist, he would share things, but sometimes he would share without reading the whole article and clicking through. So the title might look good, but the content was contrary to his progressive political values. And he was sharing things that were racist, and really just contrary to who he was. Yara gets an amazing internship at Teen Vogue, and she comes in the door. sharing. She already has 8,000 followers. She comes in the door taking pictures of everything, right? So when I'm in my internship talk, I'm saying, how many of you put out on social media that you got this internship and what you're doing, this and that and the other? None of them did. Why? Because when they come work for us, they have to sign an NDA. There's only certain things you have to put out. So you have to be particular about those things, right? Well, she started doing that, but then also the editor-in-chief came to her and said, I hear you're really active on social media, because by now she's gotten a blue check. Her followers have increased 6,000 to 16,000. Why? Because she's got all the hot fashion stuff that she's sharing from work. Yeah. So when the editor-in-chief comes and says, yeah, I hear you're really active on social media, I think I'd like you to work with us in my department, in my office. This is like primo spot. Yeah, you get to work with the editor-in-chief and everything. And she said, but I'm gonna give you one piece of advice. Your activity reflects, your behavior reflects on this organization. Don't embarrass yourself or this office. And that's what got tricky. So what she ended up doing was deciding to go dark. She decided to pull off and do no social media whatsoever because she was afraid of making a mistake. Now, what ends up happening is that she quit it cold turkey. Her endorphins were all messed up because she wasn't getting the likes that she normally likes. And, you know, there's a psychological impact of this thing also, right? You know, and so one day she did really well. She was doing something she was proud of, and she decided to take a celebratory selfie. And she took the selfie, but she didn't pay attention of what was behind her. And what she ended up doing was sharing the fall collection for a major brand that was in the magazine. She lost her position working with the editor-in-chief, but I submit she did far worse than that. She had 16,000 followers. She had a blue check. She was verified now. And she was working with the editor-in-chief. She had a wonderful opportunity if she knew that she wanted to be an influencer, if she knew that come on now, it's teen Vogue. She's a teenager. Her perspective matters. It was a duh. But instead of doing and taking that as a learning opportunity, she could have easily said, I'm going to take this picture. Excuse me, Miss Editor-in-Chief, can I post this? Is this the way you do it? Because I submit the reason she was selected is because they were watching her on social media and they were impressed with her perspective on fashion, that she had increased her followers, and she was a budding influencer in the making. So
what you're saying is we start building our personal brand since we have access to social media the first time. And that occurs most of the time, or especially with the new generations when they're very young. So
yes, they were born with this thing. Yes.
But then they're gonna grow up, they go to college, and they will become professionals. In our way of thinking and the way we see life, the way we change, we evolve sometimes, most of the time. We evolve, and probably the way we think about the world is not the same as we thought 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So how can you reposition your brand in the labor market, let's say, you know, the professional market, if you already posted that or uploaded this picture, or you know, or you expressed this point of view?
Yeah. You'll find that, and I think everybody will see on their television, Reputation Defender or something like that. You can hire companies. In fact, when I do my talk, I always talk about how before young men and women who are potentially going to be drafted to professional sports teams, their agents will actually scrub their social media. They will look at it and take a look at everything and get rid of things that they think could be potentially damaging and could hurt them from getting the opportunities that they were hoping to have. But now I have a great example that came from Teen Vogue, because there was a young woman named Alexi McCammon, whom I was very familiar with because she was an Axios journalist and reporter. So during the campaign, she was on CNBC all the time, MSNBC, and those kinds of things. And she was doing really great in her career. However, she was selected to be the editor-in-chief, the new editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue, the dream of her life, the lifetime, the job she would always want. She's a beautiful young lady and everything, but she ended up having to step down because she had anti-Asian, racist stuff on her social media that reappeared after she scrubbed it, meaning she took it down, but you think it's private? Well, people take screenshots of everything sometimes, right? And so she ended up having to leave the position and resign because of those things, because how is she going to represent all of the Asian, people that are in the company? So it was not very good at all. To answer your question, you guys are at the beginning of your careers, your beginning of your life, whether it's high school that you started putting things out, or whether it's you're moving into looking for your first job and everything. Now is the time to begin to diversify your feed. It's really great because when I did my session this week, Yara Shahidi, the actual actor from the show, has a brand partnership with Dell Computers. And in this commercial, she really is showing how she's showing all 4 parts of who she is. I'm a student at Harvard. I'm an actress and a director. I am a fashionista and I'm a model in magazines. And I am an activist. So what she is showing, and in this commercial, and it's online, so I can send the link to you guys if you want to see it, but it's an excellent example of how you can put all of who you are out on social media in a really cool way. So she would show like screenshots or little videos of each and every one of those aspects of herself. You just need to determine what those things are for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about personal branding and how what you do in social media affect your positioning, and how companies, they're gonna see you based on what you have done and how you've been positioning yourself, your brand. But what about companies the other way around? Do you think that companies understand the impact of their brand in their employees? Do you think that, so for example, you hire interns to help you in the company. So how do you choose who's going to work with the company? Do you think that that they should be aligned, the values, for example, of the brand, or your personal values, your personal values with the company values? Because at the end, we tend to look for work or for a job with companies that we like. So they tend to influence us too, right? To shape the way we think or the way we work, at least. So the question that I have is, if companies understand the importance of the personal value of the employees that they have, of the people that work within the company, in their brand, and vice versa, the company brand in the personal brand. How do you match these two?
Yeah, and that's really important. I think that a great example of how social media or the personal brand affects the reputation of the company is there was a study done, and this was 2000, like 6 years ago, right? So I believe it's even more true today, but it said they did not interview any CEOs, they interviewed the executives of the company. And 80% of the executives reported that it was important for the CEO to have a visible public profile. Now, what it did not say is that profile better be positive. So what we've been able to see in, for example, the Me Too movement, the minute the CEO has something negative in his brand and it appears on social media and the news and so forth, that guy, that girl has to go. So it is the same with the employees, because what they're finding is, and I did some additional research to give you the numbers. I don't know if anybody else has done this, but sometimes if you have a problem with a company and you call them or you email them, you don't get an answer. But the minute you put it out on social media, that social media manager's got it, solving your issue and doing it because now it's in front of everybody. Yeah. So the study said the reputation of the leader affects the reputation and how that company is regarded by 49%. That's crazy, right? In addition, it says senior management, excluding the CEO. Now, these are the company leader. Yes, I said the CEO, but these are just management folks on the management team is 44%. When you get to the employees, it's 42% of what the employees think and say about the company. And where do they think and say it? They say it on the internet if they're upset. They say it on social media if they're upset.
That's an interesting statistic. And I have that, reflecting on that, the question that I have is, should we, or should the companies incentivize the employees to speak up in social media about what they think? Should they control them to, or stop them to share what they think with society? Especially because if they could say something that would harm the company's brand positioning. So how to manage this situation? Because you're saying this is important, but at the same time, generations are changing and they're used to social media and to express whatever they want. How to manage this situation, the personal branding and the company branding without cutting any freedom of speech, let's say.
Yeah, that is the situation we're in. Yeah. So the stat that speaks to this, and this is because of the power of social media. This was 6 years ago again. 32% of what is said about the company in social media affects the reputation and how that company is regarded. They're going to have to figure it out. Yeah. Now, you can go and look at different companies and you'll see some companies will have, and they'll list like their employees or the leaders and stuff. And you can go on and they'll say, it may have the LinkedIn profile link, or it may have their Instagram. It may have something like that, or it doesn't. And what I say is, it would behoove you to be able to reflect your brand in the most positive way possible. And that should also be positive about your company. If it is not, they cannot control you because that's your personal stuff. Yeah. But then does it become a part of how you're evaluated, how you're seen within the company? You know, I don't think that I've never heard of a company requiring you to share. Like for us, we are all about social media. Daymond has millions of followers while the Shark Group has, I don't know, 100 and something thousand. That's it, you know, but Daymond has 4 million, right? So whenever we have something, it is an ask. They will give us all the information. Daymond has a book coming out, or we did Black Entrepreneurs Day, and they'll say, hey guys, here's some messaging, here's some content. They create all the little, you know, artwork for us and everything. And you decide if you want to share. If you go out right now, it was Daymond's birthday yesterday. And because we work remotely, we weren't together to really come together, have fun, but everybody posted something really fun, really great about Daymond for his birthday, wishing him happy birthday. But that also helps us. Like I told you, our interns, I work with them to make sure their LinkedIn represents. That's at the very least, you have your LinkedIn together. It's no longer a resume. It's Facebook for work, pretty much, right? You got video ideas, content, articles, things you want to share, how you explain your work that you did, your impact on the organization, all of those things. At the very least, you have that social media together that really speaks to who you are. But it's, it's just really would behoove everyone to be as positive as they can. But if you do have something else to say, think about it. We had to deal with a lot over the last 2 years, the murder of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, everything that's going on, marches and voting rights and a whole bunch of stuff. So what do? Yeah. Do you tell your employees, don't post anything about, you can't do that, right? So I do it in keeping with my personal brand, because I like fashion and I like to dance. You'll see my little reel on Instagram that talks about, I'm in a cool little outfit and I got my Black Voters Matter t-shirt on and I'm dancing. And I said, now that I have your attention, tell your senator to vote for voting rights legislation by any means necessary. That's my way. Yeah. But there's other people that may do it differently, or they may choose not to do it at all. Right. Because they're concerned. It's like, anything. If you're in the lunchroom and you're talking to somebody, do you tell them everything that's on your mind? Did you trust everybody to hold your secrets about how you feel about your boss and stuff? I don't think it's any different than that. You have to decide.
So do you think that we're risking our reputation by working with certain companies, for example, that are doing certain type of work? Let's say a consultancy company that says they send a consultant to a client to help a client, and this client is supporting or they are supporting
something contrary to your beliefs.
Yes. So are we risking the reputation if we're working in that project, although it's just a customer? I mean, it's up to them, but I'm going to say I work in this project and I know that this project, supports a movement that is contrary to what I think, for example.
I don't know if it is as cut and dry as that. I feel like it is in keeping, if you feel like these are young people that are just starting out, so you may have to take a job you don't like. I told you I had to work at Lane Bryant for $8 an hour and I made 6 figures at Blue Cross. I moved to New York and I'm like, whoo, if anybody saw me from Detroit, I'd be looking terrible. They'd be like, what's wrong with you, girl? So when I think about, I feel like that's the decision that you have to make personally for each individual. If you feel that you can work, like there's 2 good examples. One great example, let me see that. Ben & Jerry's is an activist company.
Yes.
Right? They are serious. They've got their missions in mind. They talk about voting rights and civil rights and LGBTQ rights, everything. That is a mission for them. If you feel that strongly about things, then you go work for a company that you want, that supports your particular beliefs and goals. But there's so many people. It's like me, some people want to stay at a company. I'm at a certain age, and many of my friends, Dr. Hector, that folks want to retire. We're not hardly thinking about retiring. We are moving. We got new ideas. We got new ideas for our brands and stuff like that. But some people just want to make a paycheck. Right? They want to work and then they want to retire. And I think that it's as personal as that. Like the Myers-Briggs personality type indicator that people take, it talks about that. Like, what role does work play? People could look at me and say, you quit your job. Blue Cross is working for like the government. You retire forever and stay over there. I left because my life is my baby. I wanted to do something different. So I feel that everybody has a right to be able to do that. Now, if you're working for a company that, sometimes you have to think about stuff like, are they damaging the climate and dumping? Like my friend's husband works for DuPont. DuPont has a terrible history, but did that influence his decision to go work for them? It didn't.
Mhm. I know that you defend voting rights and you pro voting rights and you express that on your social media. So were you doing this type of expressions or communicating your point of view in those regards? For example, do you think that put in risk your personal brand? Or it depends on how you manage that, or that because you could be perceived, your personal brand could be perceived in the labor market as very progressive or radical, probably, and you don't want to damage your personal brand, so you prefer to remain silent or not to take any position in society. So how to express without harming your personal brand, taking a position, or should you risk your personal brand and probably not be attractive for certain companies when they're going to hire because of the way you think? How to manage this? Because I've seen, and you just described 5 minutes ago that you post this, and you showed me the other day the videos that you post on Instagram. And I think it's a very positive way to present or to share your position in society, the way you think. How to manage this situation, because we're living in this society with a lot of issues, as you mentioned, and we tend to be impulsive sometimes and share, some comments that sometimes we don't think where we're writing, we're just emotional at that moment, and that could harm probably, but we're taking a position at the end. So how you manage this? Because I know that you are an activist. So how to be an activist without harming your personal brand?
It's like, where does it rank in those 4 things for you? Like I taught about Yara Shahidi, and she had her 4 things that she talks about. Where does it rank in your 4 important things you want to share about yourself? There was a point where I said something out of emotion. I'm usually very, very intentional, but my Daymond John was hired to do the commencement speech at the University of Michigan. I went to Michigan State University, and that I just was like not happy about it, and I had reached out to them even before, like the year before, to MSU to get them to hire him to speak, because that's my alma mater. I'm like, I would love Daymond to speak there. They were starting a new entrepreneur program and stuff, and they did not respond positively the way I felt. It was a budget issue, which I do understand, but to see him at Michigan with the Michigan hat on and the colors and the thing behind him, it was like if he was at Ohio State. Okay, that was also a thing for us, right? Michigan State and Ohio State, that is our rival. So I put out something and I said something like, look at this, Daymond. And I said, MSU, what's wrong with you? I said something like that. MSU, what's wrong with you? You didn't respond. You could have had Daymond. I took it down. I had to take it down as quickly as I put it up. But then on the other side, it depends on how strongly you feel about things. Not only do I talk about voting rights, and maybe people thought somebody could have thought it was progressive, but for me, I was also a part of the Joe Biden soul team. That is what I was doing. I was responsible. I did not care. That is what I was doing. But did Daymond do all of that? He did not. Yeah. So you think about it, it is just a personal decision. However, when you said something really, really important, you said your content is very positive. Well, it's in keeping with my personal brand. I am the eternal optimist. I can see the silver lining in everything. So even though I saw people protesting in Minneapolis, against George Floyd's killing, I did not post negative stuff. What I posted was the diversity of people who were in support. Yeah, that was my positive way. My positive way. Now, other people might do other things, and you have to reap, just like I said, with anyone else, you're making a decision. And if you're going to do it, then you have to be able to stand by it, and you just have to deal with the repercussions of it. I would not recommend any young people. I am in my 50s, so I get to do what I feel is right for me. But if I was coming out of college, I would be putting all the positive stuff out there about what I am, who I am, what I have to offer, and those kinds of things, and have social media work for me. That's what I would be doing. I would not be, putting out things that could be negative or, reflect badly on me and could hinder any opportunities. Like I wear all these bracelets, right? And I've had these since I was like 12. But when I had my first interview at a job, these are off. I don't want it to damage. It's the same way, and we didn't talk about this when we're talking about personal style. We must talk about fashion, because you cannot have your attire, your look distract from your abilities and your opportunity to get the job. So when I do my session, I'm showing that Bounce commercial where that man is in that wrinkly mint green shirt and he's talking to the foreign clients that are in town, and they're just like, looking at him like that. And he goes, puts his stuff in Bounce, Bounce in the dryer and get the wrinkles out. You don't want to have a wrinkled shirt that will damage and reflect poorly on you in any situation.
So what I'm understanding based on what you're saying is that personal branding is dynamic. You said if you're young, if you just graduated college, you should post many positive things or post positive videos or post positive comments, whatever. But as you age, or you mentioned Daymond that he doesn't like to take certain positions in social media. So it will depend on your age, and your personal branding will change with your positions in a company, for example.
I think that it can. I think it can. And to kind of choose the idea of what Daymond actually did is I was a part of the committee that put out resources for social action. And he became one of the resources of LinkedIn to talk about where you can go for voting rights, where you can go if you want to talk about literacy and Black wealth. Where do you want to go when you're dealing with police brutality and things like that? So those things, because those are the things that he was comfortable putting things out. He made that decision. But I'm talking, when you're talking about the, between the politics and stuff, he did not really get into that. That's what I mean.
Okay.
Yeah, but again, it was what is in keeping with his brand. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm understanding too that you have to be careful how you manage your social media. Then
I
you
like
have
the word intentional.
Intentional.
Be intentional. Because it's not anything. I don't want anybody to be like the young lady in Grownish and just say, I'm not going to do it, because that's not good either.
Okay.
That's what's wrong with people our age.
Okay. Yeah.
They're not on social media because they're afraid,
Yeah.
So anyway, go ahead.
So no, I want to read some of the questions that the
Mhm.
audience is posting in the chat room. The first question that I see here is what platforms. So you were talking about how, you know, to manage your social media in what platforms are the most important for your professional, for your personal branding strategy. Based on your experience,
Yeah.
LinkedIn or Instagram?
Yeah, LinkedIn for sure is important. I think a lot of kids aren't in it because they think it's just for professional people, but it isn't. And it also helps sell you while you sleep. You need to understand that. Now, what I say about the others, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and all those others, is that's where you 9 times out of 10, you got to scrub some stuff off. You know, I had an intern that was amazing, amazing. And she was very smart, very beautiful. And I think she was Pato with us then. I think so. Very smart and beautiful, and just like just a bad intern. She was amazing. She unprivated, you know, she took her Instagram off private, and I was shocked.
Oh.
Bikinis with underboob, you know, top all the way down here, just a whole lot of that did not represent how smart she is. My niece has been selected by the Skillman Foundation as a high school senior of one of 20. Tomorrow her page will go up, but she's being featured by the Skillman Foundation of the top 20 Detroiters making history, Black Detroiters making history. Right. And I called her immediately. This is before then, but when I saw the other young lady's page, I said, baby, you need to diversify your page. All right. She said, what do you mean? Because she's so cute and she's a cheerleader and all that stuff. So she's got nothing but all these pictures of her. You know, all of this, and she's not talking about her volunteer work, her work of advocacy work. She's not talking about her being featured with this other organization that's helping young people succeed in the city, all the things that she's being represented for, recognized for by the Skillman Foundation. She also got in Spelman, first try, very competitive, right? And she has a 3.9 grade point average. None of this was on her page. And so I said, you need to do that. She instantly got herself on LinkedIn because she's that kind of girl. And she is diversifying her page so that it more represents, yes, she still has fabulous fashion pictures on there. I think that is important because that's a part of who you are. That's why I talk about fashion now. I was in a fashion coma for I don't know how long, not doing anything. Yeah. So now I do it because it is a part of who I am. Yeah. So for her, you can keep that, but don't let that be all. What are the two? What's number 2? What's number 3? What's number 4 that you're going to put out? Does that help, young person?
Yeah. So the conclusion that I have from this comment that you're making right now is there should be a consistency between your social media platforms, whatever platform you want to use. You mentioned LinkedIn for your professional life, let's say, because I will have this question, if we should manage our personal brand as personal brand and professional brand, or we have to put everything together. Because me personally, I manage my LinkedIn, for example, and I post business related matters, you know, versus my Facebook. For example, I post picture with my kids, my family, my friends, you know, and I like to comment on personal, you know, things with my friends and family. But what you're saying is, if you're going to manage these two platforms, for example, should be consistent. There should be certain consistency between the message that you're sending as a person.
I feel like it is to a certain extent. For LinkedIn, I think you do keep it purely business, but I think you could also add that personality, the gifts and talents and abilities of, you want to brag a little bit about what you've accomplished. You want to share articles that you might have written. It's not just a resume, it's the other things. Your impact on the organization, I think is really kind of cool to put on LinkedIn. Your Facebook, people our age tend to just use it for family, and young people do too. But then also some of those friends are, directors and vice presidents. It would be nice to put some stuff out that talks about you professionally. Now, there are people that are social media experts that'll say it's 20% this, 10% that, 30% this. I say you decide. Yeah, you decide on how much of what you want to put out. But the one thing I will not do is have a private page that does not show anything and post ratchetness that really is not helpful to anyone or to you at all, that reflects poorly on you. I would not do any of that. And also being too revealing, on everything. Now, unless you're getting paid as an influencer, that's what I say. But, you're not going to ever see me with all my wobbly bits out on Instagram as much as I like fashion. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to show everything, So you do have to think about, would you be happy if your mama saw it? Would you be happy if your boss saw it? Yeah. So I think if you could measure it that way, you can get a little edgy. Well, as I am, I'm dancing, I'm doing something, but I'm not going to put dancing on LinkedIn. No, that's not going to happen. Right. So I still say it's about being intentional, which kind of goes back to the reason why we are here. You must have an idea of what your personal brand is, or else you'll be lost. And someone else will control the narrative based on the content that they find on you.
Yeah, okay. I have more questions here. I think most of them were answered with your the answers to the other questions, but there's one here. Should you try to overcome bias in branding, or should the focus be the best that you can be? So what should you do as part of your personal branding to overcome bias in branding?
I think I would need to know a little bit more. What do you mean by bias in branding? Branding about you?
Jesse Rivers is the one. Are you there, Jesse?
Yes, Jesse.
Well, I guess he's not here anymore, but I don't know.
What do you think it means? Overcome bias or bias against, are you talking about like Black History Month and everybody's putting out great stuff about Black History Month? Yes, I think that's cool. If you want to, if it's, Latin History Month, you're Latin. Yeah, put that stuff out there. I put out stuff. That's your opportunity. Gay pride, LGBTQ rights, or Pride Month, this is New York or whatever. If you're comfortable and you're out and you put stuff out, you should be able to put out things that support the things that you believe in. Sure, I do. That's a way of overcoming bias. I do, because then you are a representative, because representation does matter.
So do you think that brands can change or can help to change some biases that people have about certain topics? So how you do? Yeah, this is a topic that I like to teach too. But that's,
what do you think?
It's a little bit different than what we're discussing right now. But this last question, how important is your level of activity on your personal or professional accounts? I guess how often you have to post something to be present in social media. Me personally, I don't post. I have to admit, I don't want to be that public and to share many things. Although I have my way of thinking about life. Yeah, but how often? What would be, if you were my consultant? What would you tell me? What should I do?
Well, for you, I would say, you're a handsome dude. You need to be on Instagram.
On Instagram, I don't have Instagram.
I think you need to be out there someplace, not just business, and also be able to show your marketing prowess, to be able to show some of the things, whether it's, you know, I love commercials. So one of the things I'm thinking about sharing is, you know, like that ad with Yara Shahidi. I love commercials. If there's some aspect of marketing that really, really, yes, sir, Professor McFarland, somebody said. So I think that it's important to kind of reflect that. I don't know if people, you also have on your LinkedIn profile that you're an entrepreneur. I don't, you know, sharing that thing, your tips, you've been an entrepreneur a long time. There's people that could benefit from you and what you bring to the table. So those are the things I would do. Now, the other question that you asked was how often, and I only can say from my own experience, I used to put out enough just so that when people were to find me, they had content that was relevant about who I was. I would say I don't have a whole lot of time to be posting on Instagram and social media. I don't. I'm very, very busy. I started to not worry about the day of the week. If my job was more about social and digital marketing, social media and digital marketing, then I would make sure that I'm being out there content, you know, putting more content. What you might have seen for me right now, and I think I told you that I relaunched the curvystylist.com, my blog, after 10 years, because I had stopped writing. So what I found is I'm making it work for me. So instead of doing a post every week, a blog every week, I think I'm going to do a blog every 2 weeks. Yeah. And then I'll at least put out something every week about what I have to say, or, you know, another piece of the blog post that I've already written. So that keeps it out there, because my thing is I really want to write a book. I want to publish a book. So it's important to build an audience, and you also need to write on a regular basis or you'll never get it done. So that was my way. There was another example I was going to give you. Oh, so the other piece is that, so when somebody like you, when I'm meeting you and talk to you, or Dr. Thompson, you should be able to go out and find who I am and what I have to offer, right? So if I didn't do that, then I haven't done my job. So I don't think it's important, but if you need to transition and build and diversify your page, just do it. You know, my niece is taking her time doing it. She's taken all the photo shoots out and lumped them all together. So it's like you know, you can look at how many pages, you know, pictures from what single photo shoot, and she's starting to put stuff out differently, as long as you work on it. I think it's important. I don't think LinkedIn is a thing you can sleep on, though. I don't think so at all. Unless you want to be an influencer, and you are looking for brand partnerships, then that content is not as important. For you also, Dr. Gomez McFarland, I'm sorry, I want to say Hector all the time. Before Gary V was Gary V, he was the wine guy, and he came to Detroit like years and years, Gary Vaynerchuk, right? And what he talked about was, more than putting out content, you need to comment. You need to touch base with other people. You need to put stuff out and represent yourself with brands and align yourself with brands that you are in alignment with, that you care about. Because what ends up happening is, I have clients that I work with, and they put out a ton of content and they still have 296 followers. What's wrong? Because you're not showing up in the algorithm, and you also aren't out there touching other people. It's a way of networking. The most powerful thing on LinkedIn is the ability to network, to know how you're connected with somebody else. And if you need it, then you have the ability to if you need it, you have the ability to ask someone to connect you with the hiring manager or someone that works at Procter and Gamble. Yeah. So that's the other way you can use it.
Yeah,
And
that we have.
Go ahead.
No, we have two more questions. I think we're gonna start wrapping up the session very soon, but we still have some questions here that are interesting. One of them already, I guess you already answered it, but what about controversial topics like Blue Lives Matter, pro-life? Should you stay away from posts like this? Or I think you already mentioned that you should take a position and say whatever you think.
But just be particular about it and be intentional about it. I don't think that it is in your best interest to put out anything that is going to be majorly controversial about you, right? Now, as a person, I told you in my video about voting, I had Black Voters Matter, the t-shirt on. Yeah. That was intentional. It's an organization that I support. And I was also, the reason I did it is because I was talking to Black voters and I wanted us to stay engaged. It was less about the other people. It was more about us being engaged in the process. Now, if you have, there's people that are on our team that say Blue Lives Matter, and I do get it because your daddy is a police officer. It's important for there to be balance out there, but you're not saying that contrary to other things. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like it's important. Now, for young people, like I said, if you got bracelets on, it's going to deflect from you being getting the job that you want and being represented the way you want. Don't put the bracelets on, So I would say, think about that. You can ask your mom, what do you think? You ask your dad, ask Dr. Hector, Dr. McFarland, what you think, but at this point, the whole point is to get the job. And I would like for people to be, very focused on, their gifts and talents and abilities. But young people hitting the streets and marching and at the march and sharing it and all that kind of stuff, you could always put that in your stories. Stories go, you know what I mean? Stories last 24 hours, and you join the mission. Now, there are young people that are civically engaged and they have an opportunity. They really want to work. I have an intern right now. She wants to work in that field. She wants to be an activist. She really wants to work with a civil rights organization. So all day she can talk about everything she wants. I think it's important. I still think it should be positive. I still think it's not just putting out stuff to complain about. It's, putting out solutions. How are you going to impact? I told you I was part of the Soul Squad. So I was posting about the election, but I didn't post anything about Donald Trump.
Okay.
I didn't do it. I talked about the positives of my candidate.
Okay. That's very interesting. Yeah, sometimes we tend to be very emotional and passionate about certain topics and criticize and judge.
It's like you heard people say, you type up that email, don't press send yet.
Don't, yeah. Oh, okay. No, I know.
So you can post it, put something up. Don't press send yet. Wait on it. 24 hours, Yeah. Those are the kind of things I think are really important.
Yeah, I think you answered these questions too. How important is it for students to make consistent posts on LinkedIn, or is it okay to individually message employers?
I have a strategy that I tell all the kids to use, and it was taught to me by my best friend who was worked with a major outplacement firm that worked with vice presidents and stuff that were downsized, at like Kmart and different companies, right? And it's an information and advice strategy. And I think that is the best thing that you can do. When you look at LinkedIn and just say you're going to have a job. I just did it this week with a young man that I'm working with. he is going to be interviewing at ADP, and he just wanted to have an idea. It's important to do as much research. You know, we tell the kids to do research on the companies they're going to be interviewing with. You just take it one step further, looked on LinkedIn and see if anybody you know or that you're 1 degree of separation from that is working at ADP, for example, and you send them a note and saying, can I have just 10 minutes of your time? I really want to learn about your journey at ADP. Yeah. And the 9 times out of 10, like 95% of the people say, yes, I only need 10 minutes. I just want to talk about your journey. And that's it. Now, when you talk to them, then the moment as they're telling you the story, because what do people like to do? Talk about themselves. Yeah. So the moment they say something that relates to your background, you say, yep, that reminds me when I was working at such a bunch. And I did such a so and so and so. And so now you're in conversation, right? And you want to wait. You know, many times that conversation goes really, really well. And they'll say, you know, I think I'm going to connect you with so-and-so, or I know the hiring manager over there. I might put a good word in for you. Or you at least heard some really great information about the company, have your questions ready, and you were able to tell them a little bit about yourself, right? Is there anybody else you think I should talk to? You know, that kind of thing. So get your networking on. Yeah. And I think it's really, really important. There was another piece of that. What was the other part of that question?
Or if you should use it to individually message employers, your posts.
Yeah. It's really the important part is having the connection and being able to get information about the company, maybe the person you're going to be interviewing with. What's the interviewing process? Like this kid that was interviewing at ADP, they sent him a series of videos from somebody had just a new hire to somebody that had been at the company for 5 years. And they were interviewed and talking about the company and working at the company. And we went through those videos together. And I said, did you pick up? You pick up jargon, you pick up what the culture's like, you pick up how competitive the environment is. And he was ready when he went to his interview to ask questions around that really, really made him stand out as a candidate. He's on his 3rd interview.
Interesting. I have 2 last questions for this session, and I appreciate your time, Sheri.
Sure.
Should a company, instead of spending a lot of money in advertising, use the personal branding of all the employers, all the employees that they have, and run this campaign? This is just a crazy idea, because when you look at Tesla, for example, the amount of money they invest in advertising, 0. But everybody recognizes Tesla. You see the company value in the stock market is at the top of the industry. And why is that? Is that because of the CEO personal branding? In this case, Elon Musk. So should companies, this is just one of the last questions. And the other question would be the last tips. What is the 1, 2, 3 to create your personal brand, just to summarize the conversation? But so do you think that that could work? Imagine that we take the personal branding of all of our people in our company. And it's just a philosophical question, but if we're talking about the importance of personal branding and how important and how we can impact the brand of the company with what we say, with what we post in the social media, and when we see what is happening with Tesla, probably if we create a campaign, we get together the people in our company and say, let's start, I know that you cannot force the people, but if they're aligned with the values of the company, probably that could help the company brand positioning and impact the bottom line, the financial statement.
Definitely.
Bottom line.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
definitely. I gave you the example of how we do it at the Shark Group. They give you the information, they give you everything that you need to post if you'd
Mhm.
like to. Yeah.
Okay.
And they don't require it. But I think that's the one way of doing it because there's people that don't do it at all. Right. So if you were the head of a company, you really want to use the network of your employees. That's really important if you have a startup many times, right? You want to give them the content, you want to give them the approved language, images, and stuff to be able to use to make it easy. Okay. Now, but when you're talking about Tesla, I use that example very often. Can you name the CEO of another auto company? Nope. You sure can't. So I would venture to say, just like I told you, Daymond's got 4 million followers, 5 million followers, and the Shark Group has, I don't know, 10,000. I don't know. But it is when you have, he is capitalizing on the fact that 80% of the executives report it is important for the CEO to have a visible public profile, and that profile better be positive. We also saw Tesla's stock fall when he made that hiccup also.
Yes, yes.
So it can go the other way. And even deeper, when you look at the study that I sent, they are now saying it's, they call it the CEO reputation premium report. There is a premium to the CEO's reputation that has even gone to the fact that they are selecting the CEO based on that reputation because they recognize how much it affects the bottom line.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's incredible. So just to wrap up this conversation, what would be the 1, 2, 3, just to summarize everything, the 1, 2, 3, you mentioned managing the social media, be present, fashion, the way you present yourself.
Yeah, I do have a couple of things that I like to say.
Okay.
One is what my grandfather used to always say to me, and that's be particular. That meant, you know, when I was driving or when I would leave, he's like, you be particular now. And that meant to me, be particular where I stopped for gas, who I let invade my personal space, those kinds of things. Today, I use it just like I was telling you before about the kids that are posting things. Be particular about what you're posting and what others are posting and capturing about you. Because like Yara Shahidi, you don't want to take a selfie and be exposing something you didn't really need to be exposing, right? And that means the attention to detail. If you are going for something and you're hanging out with your friends, you do not need them to see you smoking marijuana. You don't need them seeing, no, you can have a drink or two, I guess, but it's not reckless abandonment out there. Not right now. I just don't think it's important for you to your brand can be, and I have to use the Alexei McCammon, the woman that didn't get the job at Teen Vogue. One of the things that people were upset about was that she said she had an all-nighter at school or something, you know, staying up all night studying. And she said something about looking like an old Asian woman. She didn't think that, right? So at the same time, it's being very careful about what you put out about other people, right?
Okay.
You know, if she said I look like my grandma, it'd be a different story. You know what I'm saying? So those are the things that I would say, be careful. The other thing is I have a ABC, and that means
the ABC, okay.
ABC, always be confidently dressed.
Uh-huh.
I just think it's really important.
Okay.
Because it not only does it speak for you before you even open your mouth, it makes you feel more comfortable too, more confident about who you are and things like that. And then I think I'm going to give you 3 questions, 2 questions. Yeah, 3 questions from my 7 questions to uncover your personal brand. The first one is, what's the most fascinating thing about you? Right? So think about what's the most fascinating thing about you. For Pato, is the fact that he is a paid artist, period, right? That's amazing that that's happening, right? That's fascinating, right, to people. The other then to help you with that is, what's the story that other people tell about you? What do your friends tell about you? What's the story? You have things that you say about me, right? I would say, and the way I got to this question was, I thought it was fascinating that I was the youngest, the first Black, the first from the field, director of marketing and sales training at Blue Cross. No, it was the fact that I lost everything, moved to New York with $1,000 in my purse and was working, and ended up a 46-year-old intern not getting paid. To me, that did not sound like anything that I want to talk about, but when I started listening to other people, that's the story they would say. She's so resilient. Look at what she did, blah, 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 blah. So you have to think about those things. And then the third is, if you're going to be on the cover, 5 years from now, you're going to be on the cover of a magazine. What magazine is it? And what did you do to get on the cover? Because you had to have done something newsworthy, and it requires you to think big. Those are the three things I would say. Think about it, and those answers will help you craft your personal brand in a very significant way.
Yeah. Well, I knew those questions, but it's always good to hear them again and reflect about it, because when you reflect about it, that will help you to create the plan, the steps that you have to take to get there, and that will be your personal branding. Yeah. So I appreciate, Sheri, your time. Thank you very much. And I'm pretty sure that everybody, Pato, is happy. Everybody's happy with your presentation. Dr. Thompson.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Sheri lived up to my expectations, exceeded my expectations. I was looking forward to hearing you, and I am glad that I heard every word of it. I'm hoping that the students got as much of it as I got. I would really appreciate you taking the time to speak to our students, our faculty, our staff. It really means a lot to us. Just even if they can remember just a small portion of what you said, I think they'll be a better person than they were before you spoke. So I think this is outstanding. Thank you. You are now part of the family. Welcome to HT, and we're happy to have you. Happy to have you be a part of HT, and we look forward to the next time we connect.
I would love it, because I went to Hampton a year ago. Okay. And 2 years ago, before the COVID completely. And it was, I felt like auntie. I felt like auntie. It was the best ever. Yeah. So I would love to come down sometime.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
So thank you, Sheri. Let's keep in touch.
What does Dr. how do you say Dr. Bonjetli?
Yeah, you got it. Bonjour.
Yes, I don't know. He was nodding his head and all kinds of stuff. I just want to know what you thought.
I think it was a great presentation. I think you provide a lot of insight to the students. So I think that all the students who attended, I think that they made a great decision to be here, right, and to listen to you, right. So absolutely, and not only them, but even myself, you put me to think. I need to work on my personal brand.
Yes. Everybody has an aha moment. It doesn't matter how old they are. Trust me. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for participating in this event.
This is what we
see you next time. Thank you, Sheri. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.